Good afternoon, Ms. Haverstick. Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Amy Haverstick, AMYHAVERSTICK,
Okay, thank you. And where are you employed?
at Animal Rescue Corp.
Okay. What is your role at Animal Rescue Corp?
I'm the Director of Operations.
Okay. And what are your duties there?
They are vast. I'm ultimately responsible for the shelter. I handle all the field operations, field team, our fleet, our purchasing, on and on.
And how many years have you worked at ARC?
I've been with ARC as an employee since 2015 and as a volunteer 3 years prior.
And do you have any training in animal welfare?
I do.
Okay. And how many years have you been involved as a whole in animal welfare?
Employed since 2011.
Any prior past experience in animal welfare?
Just volunteering.
And how many cases would you say you have been involved in?
With Animal Rescue Corp,
Yes.
at least 180.
Do you know approximately how many animals you've evaluated in the context of your animal welfare experience?
Over 10,000.
I'm sorry, how many?
Over 10,000.
And how many animals have you overseen the day-to-day boarding care for?
All of them since 2015.
Have you previously been qualified as an expert in court in the field of animal welfare?
I have
Okay, approximately how many times?
3 or 4.
Okay. Have you ever been disqualified or has your testimony been excluded in court?
It has not.
Have you provided training to others in the area of animal welfare?
I have.
Are you experienced in caring for the type of animals involved in this case, specifically avian, dogs, horses, chickens, exotic birds, encompassing avians?
Yes, overall.
Are you familiar with the acceptable standards of cares for those types of animals?
I am.
Do you have any specific training or experience assessing conditions related to animal welfare as it relates to safety, environment, and other welfare considerations for the care of boarding animals?
Through work, through
Mhm.
my job. I've had national training as a cruelty investigator.
Do you have any specific trainings on performing ammonia level testing?
I do.
And were you working for ARC on August 7th, 2025?
I was.
Did you personally examine the animals at issue in this case while they were at the property of 2740 Mossley Ferry Road in Ashland City, Tennessee?
I oversaw the field operation and physically witnessed each animal. Yes.
Okay. And are your evaluations and opinions you will give in this case based on your training, experience, and personal observations?
Yes.
And are your methods of opinion consistent with those generally accepted in your field?
They are.
Ms. Haverstick, I'm good. We were recording everything. This room is beautiful, but it has real tall ceilings. So we're going to ask you to speak up as loudly as you can. Okay.
Sorry.
Your Honor, at this time, the petitioner would like to tender Ms. Amy Haverstick as an expert in animal welfare and boarding care as it relates to these specific types of animals involved in this case.
I'm going to object to that, Judge, unless she's a vet. That's who I would like to hear from as far as the care and welfare of animals is a veterinarian.
Under the rules of evidence, a witness can be qualified as an expert by reason of education or training or experience. You can even train, you can have a plumber be considered to be an expert witness based on his years of experience and training. At this point, I find Ms. Haverstick to possess the necessary experience and training, as well as the personal care for the types of animals that are involved, and the fact that she has been qualified as an expert in other courts in the state of Tennessee. So as a result of that, I overrule your objection and grant that she will be considered to be an expert.
Thank you, Your Honor. Did Cheatham County Animal Control ask for ARC's assistance in this case specifically?
Yes, they did.
And I'd like to show you the previously entered exhibit number 1, which I believe I left on my desk.
I think that's what she tried to show me.
Do you recognize that document?
I do.
Okay, can you explain what it is?
It is the designee letter, it's our agreement with Cheatham County Animal Control to assist with this. It is our letter from Cheatham County Animal Control designating us as their designee for this situation.
And is that a true and accurate copy of the request you received from
It
Cheatham
is.
County?
Yes,
And it was your understanding that Cheatham County Animal Control was investigating and potentially would be seizing animals in a criminal case?
yes,
And can we refer to Animal Rescue Corp as ARC?
yes,
Okay. Did ARC agree to be Cheatham County Animal Control's designee?
we did.
And what is your understanding on why Cheatham County Animal Control needed your assistance?
We knew there were exotic birds involved, and 2 dogs and a horse. Cheatham County is not, and chickens. Cheatham County Animal Control is not set to support those.
And did ARC have any discussion as far as the financial arrangements between you being a designee with Cheatham County Animal Control? Were you going to charge them anything to?
No.
Okay. And what was your understanding of who would cover the cost of care?
We would cover it.
Okay. And what was your understanding as far as how you would be getting reimbursed for your cost?
Generally in the field, if we get a surrender from the owner, then there's, we go forward with that. Everything's still treated as evidence. So we get through that period. In this situation, there was not a surrender. And so as part of our agreement, we do point to 3914 210G, that we will recover those costs via the bond.
And pursuant to that statute, were you aware that you could bring a petition to the court on your own behalf
Yes,
to request the bond be ordered?
yes. So sorry.
Were you on scene at the time of the actual seizure of the animals?
I was
Okay. And from whose custody were those animals seized from?
Becky Sipes,
Okay. And
Rebecca.
how many animals were seized?
17 total.
And how many animals did ARC agree to be the statutory designee for?
All 17.
So we're going to move into the condition of the animals at the time you received them in your care, of which I would like to discuss if there was any video taken on the day that that the animals were seized.
There was.
Okay, and who took this video?
It would have been either myself, Tim Woodward, our executive director, Kim Rezac, or Michael Cunningham.
And so it would have been ARC's
Leadership.
Okay. And are these videos that you regularly and ordinarily film on any seizures you're involved in?
Yes, there are many videos and photographs of the entire scene.
Okay. And have you watched the video? Have you watched a video prior to your testimony today?
Yes.
Okay. And so there's a video on this flash drive that I prematurely took out to have set up, and it was in this plastic bag. Would you recognize this
Yes.
bag, and how do you recognize that?
I signed it.
Okay. Okay. And the video contained within this flash drive, does that fairly and accurately depict the environment and the living conditions of the animals that you obtained custody of at the time of seizure?
It does,
And that date was August 7th, 2025?
correct.
Okay. And are the conditions of the property and the animals as depicted in this video going to be used to provide your assessment as far as the care needed once in your custody?
Yes,
And would reviewing this video now help during your testimony be helpful to you to explain your opinion further?
sure.
Your Honor, I would like to play the video and subsequently move it into evidence as the next listed exhibit.
All right, how do you wish to play the video?
I have adjusted with the staff as far as arranging it on
Right.
my personal laptop. Okay. You go ahead, play it.
Judge, at this point, I'm gonna object to the playing of this video. I mean, this is evidence in her criminal case. That they've already wrongfully put online and posted. Again. a discovery
Well, I'm not
issue.
going to show this evidence, this videotape on the live stream of this hearing to avoid it being disseminated among anyone who wants to watch here. But otherwise, this would be an opportunity for you to review the evidence and conduct some discovery on your own behalf if you wish to do so. But I don't think it's inappropriate or impermissible for them to play the video, because clearly they're asking for reimbursement of the cost of care for animals removed from your client. Part of that means they must show, in my opinion, a justification for that removal. And this video would be their evidence of doing that. So note your objection and I'll overrule it.
So I would like to move the video into evidence if I
Right,
already
we'll
did
mark
not.
that as the next exhibit, is that too?
So did that video fairly and accurately depict the condition of the defendant's property and the animals that were seized on August 7th, 2025?
Yeah, somewhat, yes.
Sorry?
Yes, it depicts it. Yes,
And were you identified in that video?
I was.
And did you have any personal protection gear on?
Yes, anyone entering the house was required to wear a respirator with ammonia cartridges.
And why was that precaution taken?
Generally, as a rule, if you smell it before you go in the door, you know that it's going to be high enough to require protection, but we always go in with protection, and then we take an ammonia reading from inside the house.
Could you smell ammonia from the exterior of the
You
home?
could from the porch.
And were any ammonia level testings completed?
Yes,
And who did that testing?
I did.
Okay,
Using
And-
Draeger tubes.
I'm sorry,
Using Draeger tubes.
Draeger tubes, okay. And what was the,
Draeger tubes is a type of testing system. It's just a glass tube.
and what were those test results?
Ammonia levels were 100 parts per million.
And in your expert opinion, as far as your training on ammonia testing, what does that number mean?
I mean, it's unsafe for humans and animals.
Animals, okay. What would be a safe level?
Less than 5,
Okay. And again, how many was this?
100.
And so you mentioned that the ammonia levels were unsafe for animals. Is that inclusive of avian species?
It includes avian species, yes, and dogs, cats.
Did you observe any of the animals inside the property or on the exterior of the property having any access to food or water?
Not to my knowledge.
And there was some footage shown of some,
There was some food, but it had maggots in it.
okay,
So not clean, not potable water, not clean food.
okay. But were the animals in access to that?
No, it was separate.
Okay. And did you find any any food on the property that was not contaminated?
I did not.
And did you find any uncontaminated water on the property?
No,
Did you notice if there was any running water inside the home?
I don't believe there was.
And from information we'll get to, is fresh fruits part of the exotic birds' diets?
Fruits and vegetables.
Fruits and
yes.
vegetables, okay.
Nuts.
Did you find any fresh food in good condition?
I did not.
Regarding the room that we witnessed on the video with the cage birds, what were the sanitary conditions of their cages?
They were very filthy. Definitely needed cleaning. There was feces and just that general grease on the entire cages, all the cages. Refuge on the floors.
Mhm. Okay. And again, just to confirm, was there any food or water inside the cages?
Not that I saw.
And did the cages have everything that a bird would need if confined?
Not in my opinion, no. They did lacking enrichment. They were lacking variations. They did have perches, but they were very soiled perches. Exotic birds need a lot more than that to thrive and survive.
And what was the overall condition of that room that the avians were confined to?
It's not good. There was trash thrown. The whole house was very full of, I don't want to call it all trash, but you could hardly walk through the house. The avian room was probably the more clear passage wise, but it was very, very unkempt.
So from, again, reviewing the video, we saw some animals. Was there any birds that were outside of cages?
Yes, there
In-
were
in the home?
in the main bird room. There were two that seemed to go in and out of the cage. In the master or the primary bedroom, there was a macaw that was loose, and also an umbrella cockatoo that was loose, and a wild starling that was flying around the bathroom.
Were there any other home animals inside the actual home other than birds?
Not that we could locate. There was evidence of being cats, but we weren't able to find.
Okay. And the video transferred to outside. What were the animals that were located on the exterior of the home?
There were 2 dogs, 1 mini horse, and 3 chickens.
And did you observe any food or water within access to them?
I did not.
Did you find any deceased animals on the property?
We did.
Okay, can you explain what you found in that regard?
There was a chest freezer outside the main entry door. And in that, where the freezer was unable to close, there were a deceased rooster, deceased cockatiels, a baby bird of some sort. There was a couple of skulls that were around there that appeared to be avian as well.
So again, to recap, how many living animals did you observe on the property?
17.
And in your opinion, what were the conditions they were living in as far as relating to animal welfare?
They were not good conditions. The dogs were observed outside. They had missing hair. They had fleas. There's a little bit of rainwater that seemed to have collected in a small little divot. That was the only water that we saw. The birds were missing a lot of feathers. Beaks were overgrown. Nails were overgrown. The air was not breathable. The chickens, the coop that was there was very unkempt. There was refuse in there. It was hazardous. There was no food in the chicken coop. One of the chickens was in and out of the coop, so they seemed to be able to get out of that. But it was very desolate, very unhealthy.
And the horse, as far as the conditions regarding animal welfare,
There was, I did not see any food for him, or there was some straw that was kind of laid over the ground, but that would seem to more as mud control by a camper that was in front of the house. I did not find anything for the horse. He needed a hoof trim pretty badly.
all right, I have another document. Sorry. Do you recognize this document?
I do.
And what is it?
It is our master intake.
I'm gonna object to this. I don't know. What this is.
I'm sorry, what did you say it was?
It is our master intake that lists all the animals removed from the property.
All right. And your objection is to what, Mr. Vaughn?
Same, same discovery issue that I have no idea what any of this is.
Well, for the purposes of this quasi-civil hearing, I'm going to overrule the objection and allow it to be put on. We'll give you an opportunity to readdress that at a later date, but right now, I would just like to get through the hearing. So overrule the objection.
Thank you. Who created, sorry, can you state again what this is?
It is our master intake list.
Okay. And who created it?
I did.
Okay. And what is on it specifically?
It lists which animals were removed from the property. The area section designates where they came from off the property that pegs back to a property map. The intake number is the order in which we remove the animals from the property. Names, sometimes we have names that are given to us, sometimes we don't. Everybody that comes in gets a name. Then we have the species, breed, color markings, age, sex, and weight. Sex, age, and weight.
And is this a true and accurate representation of the animals that ARC took custody of as a designee on August 7th, 2025?
It is.
Okay. I would like to move this into the next exhibit.
Three.
Okay, I have another document for you. Ms. Haverstick, do you recognize this document?
I do.
And can you please state what it is?
It is a worksheet for the cost of care for the seized animals.
And who created it?
I did.
Is this a record you generally keep and create in the course of your regular business as it relates to being a designee?
Yes.
And was this record made at or near the time of the events they document?
Yes.
Okay. And are these costs based off of information you have access to in your regular course of business?
They are.
And is this a true and accurate representation of the cost of care ARC has incurred or will incur in the future for these seized animals?
It is.
Okay. I'd like to go ahead and admit this into evidence, although I'm still going to need her to continue to review it.
All right, we'll mark it as exhibit 4.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So were the animals inspected at the defendant's property? Were they examined by a licensed veterinarian?
They were.
And did the animals need medical care upon their seizure?
Yes.
Okay. And did the vet on scene advise of the care needed for these animals?
She did.
And did you incur costs for those medical services and treatment the vet advised?
We did.
All right, so we're just going to focus on the section reference medical services for now.
Okay.
What time frame do these costs cover?
They cover the day of seizure and a few days after.
And then the last line, the continuing vet oversight.
Yes.
Can you explain that, please?
We have ARC employs a veterinarian that comes to the shelter and provides oversight. She does a lot of veterinary exams. She's not necessarily the one that goes in the field with us all the time, but she is there every week to examine animals. And so we've allotted 2 hours of her time per week to observe, make sure everything is going well with the animals we have.
Okay. And do you,
These specific animals.
yes. Does ARC pay that veterinarian?
We do.
And what is your anticipated monthly cost for that continued vet care for these animals?
It is $200 a month, correct? Yes. It's no, sorry, it's $100 a week, so $400 a month.
Okay. Okay. So related to the remaining medical services on this list, can you briefly describe what some of them are?
We've got heartworm and intestinal parasite control for the dogs, the 2 dogs. We did fecals on the dogs, heartworm test, which one of them turned up to have Ehrlichia, which is a tick-borne disease. Treatment for that. All of the birds had to have testing done on scene and sent to IDEX to make sure that they were free of diseases. We also had to do, the dogs had ear infections, parasite infections. The birds were, believe all of them, everyone except the starling received nail and beak trims.
Okay.
And medicated baths for the skin issues that the dogs had.
Okay. And so as it relates to the cost associated outside of the veterinary care that we did discuss, the costs that are associated, how were those calculated?
The ones we were just discussing, the medical,
Yes, the
Okay.
medical.
they are from actual.
Judge, I'm gonna object to hearsay within hearsay. We're talking about, if we're gonna talk about costs and what the vet said, and the care the vet gave, I'd like to speak to a vet about this. But we're talking about, just because this piece of paper says it, Judge, it's not gonna be good enough for me to justify that this is what happened, or that this is even real.
The objection is that this testimony is based on hearsay. Your response?
That if I can lay the foundation, I will show that these costs are actually part of business records that are incurred in their ordinary course of business.
Well, those costs are not, the objection is as to what she's testifying to for, based on this record, is that correct? What the document is?
Yes, correct.
Those business records exception would apply if in fact this document you're referring to is a part of the business records, but I don't think that's been yet established. So I would sustain the objection until you establish a foundation under the business records exception.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Are the costs associated with the medical services on this worksheet actual incurred costs by ARC?
They are.
And do these costs come from any records that you keep in your ordinary course of business?
They do,
Okay, can you explain what those are?
via Patterson Veterinary Supplies. I do the purchasing for that. Chewy, through Amazon. I am responsible for most of those purchases.
And so those would be invoices and receipts?
Correct.
Correct, okay. And those are generally kept in your ordinary course of business?
They are.
I would like to hand you another document. Do you recognize those papers?
I do.
Okay, can you please state what they are?
They are invoices from Patterson Vet Supply, as well as, is that Chewy? Who is that? Chewy. Quite a few things from Chewy, where we paid for the testing for the University of Georgia. I'm sorry, they went to the University of Georgia, not to IDEX. I misspoke. And shows the appropriate payments
Okay,
via American Express.
okay. And were those the invoices and receipts that you used to create your cost of care worksheet as it relates to the medical services costs requested?
Yes, as far, yes.
Your Honor, I would like to introduce the medical invoices as the next exhibit.
The exhibit 5.
Judge, of course, I'm gonna object to this. This is what I got at 5 o'clock yesterday. I would assume. The other is there's no way to tie this to any specific animal. And as far as all these diagnoses and stuff on the other worksheet, it's not necessarily the cost or the number, it's the reasonableness is that I have the issue with all this with, because, I mean, like, I object to these being entered as this. I've never seen it before. It's hearsay within hearsay. A vet needs to produce these if we're gonna, I mean, the vet needs to produce the diagnoses on this. This I've never seen. And I have no idea how this can be tied to Ms. Sykes' relevance.
Wow.
Court understands your frustration, Mr. Vaughn, with being forced to have a hearing in a case where you say you've not received all of the information, but this is a quasi-criminal, quasi-civil procedure that the court is required to do because of the length of time these animals have been removed. And for that reason, it was not my inclination to postpone this hearing, even to allow you to review these invoices. The invoices that I've been handed or testified to by this witness as being invoices for veterinarian treatment and expenses that have been actually incurred by the Animal Rescue Corp in the treatment of these specific animals. It is, in this court's opinion, not necessary that each expense be attributed to each of the 17 animals, but rather that it has been related to the care of these animals in question, and therefore the court overrules your objection and allows it to be introduced as an exhibit. So.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Or can I object and get a true and accurate copy? These have been redacted. What is that? What we're redacting animal stuff?
Let's see what it is.
What are we hiding?
Your Honor, the redactions are account numbers and personal financial information that is relative to ARC. And additionally, it also redacts anything that is not related to this case to limit any confusion.
Examining these records, it does not appear that there is anything that would render these records to be suspects simply because there's been redactions. I think that the elimination, we routinely do that in civil cases where there's personal information that's not pertinent to the issue before the court on a divorce case, such as social security numbers and so forth, would be redacted. In this particular case, I don't see, I suppose it could go to the issue of the weight to be assigned to these records if there was some indication that the information redacted was in fact relevant to the issues before us. But for example, the check that's written has a banking routing number that was omitted and redacted. That's standard operating procedure usually. And account numbers, invoice statements, and so forth. I'm going to allow them in over your objection simply because of the fact that the court is trying to determine the amount of a bond to be assigned for the animals in question. And although it does not have to be a dollar for dollar relation to the amount of the bond, it does have to indicate that there were expenses. So I understand your objection, and in the criminal case, you may have a valid argument to make regarding the discovery issues. In this portion of the case, it is the court's opinion that the records introduced are sufficient to relate to the issues before the court. So overrule your objection.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Haverstick, can you explain a little bit about your ordering as it relates to, take an example as far as rabies vaccinations?
Well, rabies will be ordered in quantities of 50. That's how they come.
Okay.
There were not 50 dogs on this property.
Okay. And so is it fair to say you have a overstock that you can pull from when
Yes.
needed?
We keep vaccinations stocked at all times.
Okay. And so just to confirm, those invoices and receipts were to purchase the items listed here on the medical services rendered.
Yes,
Reference that you have continued veterinary oversight on these animals and that they are paid staff. Is that accurate?
that's correct.
Okay. And how much do you pay your vets per hour?
She makes $85 per hour,
Okay. And how much are you requesting on your cost of care worksheet?
$50 per hour.
$50 per hour. Okay. And do you expect any additional cost of care related to medical services here regarding these animals that is not reflected on your cost of care worksheet?
That is unknown.
Okay. Why is that?
Anything can happen and we'll provide the care. I can't state absolutely not.
Sure.
They're living, breathing, sentient beings.
All right. So now we're going to shift to the boarding cost. How many days has ARC been the legal custodian of the defendant's animals?
It has been 237 days.
Okay. And are you requesting you be reimbursed for boarding costs to care for those
Yes.
animals during that period of time? Okay. All right. So we're first going to start, we're focusing on the paragraph regarding boarding. We're going to start with the birds. How much are you requesting for daily boarding fees for the exotic birds?
$25 per day per bird.
Per bird. Okay. And what is included in that $25 per day cost?
Food, enrichment, overhead, employees,
Okay. Can you explain your overhead a little bit more, please?
utilities. We've got to portion off, everything. It costs us about $80,000 a month, I believe. And we're using about 16% of our current space on these animals. So a portion of that has to be covered by the boarding.
Okay, thank you. So the food for the birds specifically, can you give me a rough figure of the amount of money you're spending to cover the food for the birds?
One 35-pound bag of 135-pound bag of food for the birds cost $150, and we go through about 1.5, 2 of those a month, and that's just the hard food.
Okay. What other food do they eat?
They also get nuts and seeds, and they get fresh fruits and vegetables every day.
So what would you estimate as far as your total food cost for the birds only?
For a month,
Yes, a month.
probably between $400 and $500 a month.
And what other expenses do you have for the birds?
We have the nails and beak trims. I believe we've done those 3 times since we've had them in custody. We also have the day-to-day care for them because the birds are exotic and they are not your everyday dogs and cats. Only staff members are allowed to care for them. So it's pulling people from that.
Okay. Is enrichment included in that daily cost?
It is.
Okay. Can you please explain what enrichment is?
Enrichment is these birds, they need something to do. So we buy bird toys from Amazon. We also make some in-house when we have the appropriate, items to do so. Birds need something to chew on, to make noise with, to keep themselves active, puzzles, find the nut, keeps them active in their brains working instead of just sitting there and falling into ill health. Birds need to be busy. So we spend a lot of money on.
Okay.
They're not cheap.
Okay. So can you give an example to the court as far as what an item looks like as far as enrichment and how the bird would use it and how long it would last that bird?
And it's sort of specific now that we've had them for so long, what bird likes. Some of them are, put together blocks of wood that they tear up and destroy, work their beaks on. Some of them are paper balls that they like to tear apart. We also use like Amazon packaging paper that comes in packages. They love that. They could be musical or noise makers. There's a big variety. Sometimes it's a cereal box with some paper and a nut in there with some twine. I mean, you can do some of those things, but different birds have different toys. Like a macaw needs a different enrichment than the Alexandrine. So it's different, but they're not cheap.
And how fast on
Oh, they
average
will-
would they go through those?
And again, that's kind of bird dependent, but it's generally they don't last more. Some birds that they last about a day or two. Other birds they could have them for a week to 2 weeks. But it's a constant replenishment.
And on average, how much would you say that you're spending a month on enrichment?
5 to
Recognize those documents?
yes,
Okay, can you please explain what they are?
they are copies of invoices, receipts for enrichment and food for the birds.
Okay. And so to clarify that those are expenses that ARC has incurred as far as providing the proper enrichment to the birds.
Correct.
And are those records kept in your ordinary course of business?
They are.
And were those prices used to help address your daily boarding costs?
They were.
And are those receipts a fair, true and accurate representation of the costs incurred?
They are.
Okay, I would like to enter the enrichment package as the next exhibit, please.
Obviously, I'm gonna object, Judge, but I know how it's gonna.
I want you to do on the record whatever you feel like you need to do.
I'm
Don't
gonna,
worry about if you repeat yourself, just make your objection and I'll rule it.
okay, Judge, I'd like to object to these random Amazon orders that who knows what birds these are typed. I don't know.
Again, the same ruling will be that this witness has testified these were expenses that were incurred on behalf of the animals that were removed, and the court allows the testimony over your objection.
Thank you. Is ARC currently, or has ARC since August 7th taken in any other exotic birds in their care?
We have not.
Thank you. Okay, so we are next going to shift to the dogs' daily boarding expenses. How much are the daily fees for the dogs?
$25 per day.
Okay, can you please explain how that was calculated?
Much the same way, using the breakdown of the amount of space that these animals are taking up and the amount of employees, food, volunteers that go into that.
And the food was part of this. How much are you anticipating? How much do you estimate you're spending in food for the dogs?
For the two dogs, they probably, between the two of them, go through a bag of food and maybe a case of wet food a month.
And how much is that roughly a month?
I'm sorry, it's a month, per month. $30 for a bag of dog food, and I believe a case of wet food is about $25.
So,
So $55 in food.
and what type of daily care is being provided to the dogs as far as staff's requirements?
They are, of course, fed and watered, and their space is cleaned every day. They go on multiple walks outside. They have improved health-wise, so they enjoy everything a lot more. They get enrichment in the afternoon, either via Kongs or a special toy. They are played with and walked and taken care of.
All right, we are now going to shift to the boarding expenses for the equine, which is the horse. How
Mhm.
much per day is that?
We have $25 per, no, wait. Yes, $25 per day.
Where is the horse located at?
The horse is with one of our partners, Piccolo Farms,
Okay, and why is the horse there?
because they are more appropriate to take care of a horse.
And again, just recapping, the agreement you made with Cheatham County Animal Control allowed ARC to make these arrangements
Yes,
if
but
needed.
they are all under our control.
Okay. So that is my next question. So who's deemed the legal custodian then of animals that are at your partners?
Animal
facilities?
Rescue Corp.
And so how were those boarding costs calculated for the horse?
Again, using the, overhead food needs, and care such as farrier and that type of thing.
And is the $25 a day rate fair and reasonable based on charges in the area?
It is.
And have you provided payment directly to Piccolo Farms for the horse specifically?
Not as yet.
Okay, can you please explain why?
Well, we are waiting for this cost of care bond or via, no longer having to do that.
So was that a
And
discussion?
that was their agreement. That was our agreement with Piccolo Farms.
Okay, that they would wait until you recovered
Yes.
money from the bond to be
Correct.
reimbursed. Okay. Where are the chickens?
They are also, two of them were with Piccolo Farms,
And the third?
is with another ARC Foster.
And again, the agreement with Cheatham County Animal Control allowed you to place animals at
Correct.
partners, and who's the legal custodian of the
Animal
chickens?
Rescue Corp.
And how much per day are you requesting for the chickens boarding?
$5 per day.
And what's included in that cost?
Same as the others.
And what type of daily care is being provided to the chickens?
food, water, fresh water, housing, clean housing, space to roam.
And is the $5 a day per chicken fair and reasonable based on the rate in the area?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and have you paid for the boarding charges for the chickens?
With Piccolo Farms, no.
And again, is that based on your original agreement?
Original agreement with Piccolo
Wait.
Farms, yes.
Thank you. Okay, so let's recap. How much for the 237 days that you've boarded these 17 animals, based on the daily rates that we've discussed in detail, how much has ARC incurred for the boarding expenses alone?
$86,505.
And I want to clarify, that's ARC and their partners have incurred.
Correct. That's for all the animals.
Okay, thank you. And what is the amount of medical expenses that has been incurred today?
It is $5,383 for all the animals.
Okay, thank you. And what is the total expenses combining the boarding and the medical services that has been incurred from August 7th until March 31st as of today regarding the boarding and care of these animals?
$91,888.
Okay, thank you. So we have at the bottom of the page anticipated costs for the next 30 days. Is that accurate?
It is.
Okay. And can you explain the total combination for the 30 days?
It is the amount to board all the animals per day. It's $365 per day for all 17 animals. And times 30 days is $10,950. And to cover the veterinary oversight for 1 month is $400 for a total of $11,350 for a 30-day period.
Okay, thank you. So you referenced just a little bit ago that as director of operations, that what was your monthly operating budget for your facility?
$80,000.
80,000.
Mhm.
And how much space in your facility is the defendant's animals taking up?
Approximately 16%.
16%. Okay. So doing the math, 16% of $80,000, my math notes show that's $12,800. Does that sound correct?
Correct.
Okay. So that is $12,800 of actual operating expenses based on the amount of space and need that the defendant's animals are taking up for just the birds and the dogs. Is that
Just
correct?
the birds and the dogs, yes.
Okay. And what, so what would be the additional expenses in addition to that? The boarding cost for the,
For the,
Objection leading.
Sustained, don't leave it with us.
thank you.
so this 16% is for the birds and the 2 dogs
Yes.
of our facility. There are additional animals. This boarding covers all 17 animals.
Okay. So just alone, looking at your overhead cost for birds and dogs is $12,800, but how much are you asking for all 17 per month?
$11,350.
So based on that, you were giving the defendant a discount based on your overall operating expenses.
Correct.
Do you have additional overhead expenses that are not included in this cost of care bond request? Do you have additional expenses we haven't requested?
Not to my knowledge.
Do you have any expenses that you have not provided any receipts for?
Fruits and vegetables that sort of goes in with our normal weekly grocery runs for the shelter.
And have you needed to purchase any other supplies that are not included on this list?
We bought some caging for the birds.
Have you needed to pay any staff any overtime?
No,
Have you taken on any other rescues since August 7th, 2025?
we have,
Do you recall how many cases you've done?
I believe it's 16.
And has the space that you are using to board the defendant's animals, have they limited your ability to provide care for any of these other rescues?
They've taken up the space that we would normally use for puppies and newborns and moms, which is more of an isolated space. So we've had to create other areas for that.
Have you had to incur any additional expenses by limitation of that space?
We've had some boarding fees ourselves for a
Okay.
case that we did.
Do you recall how much in boarding you spent for that case?
I believe it was just over $3,000.
What type of entity is ARC?
We are a nonprofit.
And do you do fundraising as part of your organization?
We do.
And do you know how much, do you know if the fundraising you potentially have received from this case, from your donors, has that surpassed any of your expenses that are not included on this cost of care?
It is not. Wait, say it again.
Sure. So
I got lost.
if you have received any fundraising for this case specifically
Specifically,
from your donors,
that has not exceeded
it has not
the
exceeded
expenses, no.
and to clarify, the expenses not included in this cost of care that you covered, the
Correct,
additional boarding and the caging and.
correct.
Have you been a designee in a criminal cruelty matter before?
Many times.
And what was the longest length of time you had custody of those animals?
409 days.
And did you receive a security bond order in that matter?
We did.
And has ARC been reimbursed by Cheatham County Animal Control for any of the expenses incurred to date?
We have not.
Has Ms. Syke reimbursed you for any of the expenses incurred to date?
She has not.
Should Ms. Syke fail to pay the bond per the statutory guideline or agree to surrender these animals, what would be ARC's next step?
Once they were no longer part of the evidence for the case and we had ownership, they would then go to our through our sorry, very dry mouth. They would go to our placement partners.
And would ARC be receiving any money from those placement partners?
No,
And if those animals are adopted later, would ARC receive any money from the adoption fees?
we would not.
Has ARC made any money off of this case?
We have not.
Will ARC make any money off of this case if they were to receive ownership?
We would not.
And if ARC is not granted an order or the bond is waived for the defendant for whatever reason, and ARC does not get compensation on this, how would that affect ARC?
We would continue caring for the animals.
And how would that
Sorry,
affect?
can you repeat that?
I said, we will continue caring for the animals. That's what we do.
And how would that affect ARC financially?
It could limit some of the cases we would be able to do.
And how would that affect your relationship with Cheatham County Animal Control?
It would be hard to justify.
So one last recap. The cost of care on this worksheet is provided the support you've provided, it's fair and reasonable based on the cost associated?
Okay, good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Winston.
Hi.
I represent this site. Okay, so how much money does ARC make a year? What's the tax return? Do you have a tax return?
I have one.
Okay,
What was the question again? I'm
if
sorry.
she had a tax return from ARC,
The tax return from ARC
yeah, like
for ARC?
for ARC,
Okay.
but we can't find that one. What do you think a tax return would look like?
I don't do the tax return.
Okay,
I'm the director of operations.
so all right, explain to me the hierarchy here. Where,
So an executive director,
okay,
we have a board of directors above them. We have an executive director, and then under the executive director is myself, director of operations. We have a director of animal welfare and placement. We have a director of administration.
okay. Are these all salaried positions?
Yes.
Okay. The people that work, all right, so is ARC just in Gallatin or is it all over and there's like almost like sects in every,
There's almost like what?
like sects, SECTS,
Like,
like pockets all over the country of
no,
views? Okay,
we only have about, I believe it's, I can't remember exactly, 8 or 9 employees. And we utilize a lot of volunteers.
okay. So most everything is done, would you say most everything's volunteers?
No,
Okay. The day-to-day stuff is,
but we have a shelter manager, we have an animal care person, and then volunteers come in to assist.
okay. And so those are not paid in any way.
Correct.
Okay.
They get
Uh,
lunch.
Lunch,
Mhm.
fair, seems reasonable. So who would know we're on about in your line? Would the executive director be?
Executive director.
I mean, are we talking about, would you think that is ARC operating at a loss?
I mean, I stated that our monthly expenses were about $80,000.
80,000?
Mm-hmm.
How big is this place?
What do you mean? It has to do more with the animals that come in. How many animals do we have?
How many animals do
What?
you have?
It varies by day. I could have anywhere from 20 to 350. It depends on the case that we've done, what animals have come in, what animals have gone out. It's a very fluid situation.
Who would know how much money ARC has made since the release of this video?
Not myself.
Okay, that's fair. Do you often do the video thing?
We do.
Okay, even when an ongoing
We
criminal.
run 100% on private donations.
Okay,
Without raising money, we can't do cases. We can't help animals.
okay, so
It's a cycle.
it's donations.
It's donations and grant. And we have a few grants, but I don't.
Okay. And then, but just, one of those things perhaps future watch out for is releasing evidence and ongoing investigation. I mean, that could be a bad thing.
Is there a question?
Huh?
Is your question?
Yeah.
What's your question?
Why do you think it's okay to release evidence
I
and
do
on
operations,
my ongoing in my ongoing criminal investigation?
We don't name any names. That could be anybody's house, anybody, anywhere.
It's
Why
all
would-
over.
Objection, Your
No,
Honor.
it's not.
Hold on, we have an objection.
Is being argumentative regarding the release of information regarding criminal charges.
Well, I just would like to know why she thinks it would be okay in an ongoing criminal investigation with a human on the other attached to it. That would be okay for the sake of them lining their pockets with money.
Number
Oh.
one, the objection is being argumentative. Overrule the objection as to that part, but limit your questions to why she feels that it would be okay to put that online. She is not a member of the law enforcement community as far as this court is concerned. She is a private entity that deals with the care and rescue of animals. So I don't think the same rules would apply in a criminal case, but I'll allow you to ask if she has any instruction or any advice or education that would require her to avoid posting that information online.
Are you aware of the pitfalls for Ms. Sipes' due process rights by posting that
We never
online?
identified her. We never identified the address. Now, if someone comes in and identifies themselves, that's on them.
Okay,
We would never identify name, address. We would not.
okay, so at some point in all of this, you were willing to waive the cost if Ms. Sipe just gave up her animals.
Mhm.
But because she won't do that, now it is about money. Is that correct?
I didn't write the statute,
Okay,
but if you're going to prohibit animals from moving on and out of our care, then if they're your animals, then you should cover the cost. That's the statement of the statute.
has Ms. Sipe offered to help you all take care of the animals?
That is not an option. They are evidence.
Well,
and
like the evidence
we're-
you leaked on YouTube?
Oh, well, I didn't leak anything.
Right. Um, so effectively, this document, did you prepare this?
I did.
Okay. Would you agree that reasonableness in the care of animals is subjective or objective?
In what way?
Like this to me looks like a pet spa day kind of price list.
Okay.
And the people asking the money are the people with the name your price tool. That's what I'm asking about.
Okay, the statute states fair and reasonable, and that is what that is. It is a reasonable amount. If you went to go board your exotic bird somewhere and have it cared for, it would be way outside of that. So the statute states that we have the right to recover.
So this stuff, do people donate this stuff?
No, I mean, do they sometimes? Sure. Any of that? No.
Okay. At one point I heard,
Did you say paper could be and what's the word y'all keep using for just playing and having fun? What do y'all?
The correct term is enrichment.
Enrichment. Got it.
Mhm.
Paper is enrichment?
I said it can be,
Okay.
that it is used sometimes. It can't be, you can't just throw a bunch of paper in there and expect these birds to thrive. No.
right, but some birds like the paper.
Is that correct?
Sure.
Okay. You said $400 to $500 per bird per month is rent. Is that
That
right?
is not what I said.
What was no, that was for food, right?
For food.
And a bag of bird food costs,
$140.
okay. How many birds can eat off of that? Does each bird get their own bag of bird food?
No. We go through at least a bag to a bag and a half a month for the birds that are at the shelter,
For
which
each,
are only these birds.
so a bag and a half per bird a month.
No, that's not what I stated.
Okay,
It's a bag to a bag and a half per month for the entirety of the birds we have at the shelter.
and a bag costs
And
$120.
that costs $140. And that is just the exotic hard bird food. That doesn't include any of the other things we feed them.
Okay. Have you turned down donations in this case?
No,
Um,
for what?
anything, anything.
Not that I know of, but I don't handle all the donations.
Okay. Who does?
It would go through the website or as a director of development.
Okay. Is there, who's the accountant person? What is their name?
Well, it would go through Tim, through our ED.
Tim, what's his name?
Woodward.
Woodward?
Woodward.
Woodward.
WOOD.
So he's the guy that sees the money?
I mean, it is a group effort here, but yeah, I mean, does he see? Everything is discussed with him, sure. But we have a director of development. We do have an accountant that we use. She's not an ARC employee,
Okay.
but that is all dealt with through him.
When you went to go take these birds to the vet, do you just use one specific vet? Is there a vet that comes and volunteers sometimes?
Yeah, we do not take them to the vet. There was a vet on scene
Mhm.
that did the initial testing swabs and the initial assessments. And then that same vet came to the shelter and did further, deeper exams. And then we do have a vet that we employ that is there every week.
Do you ever help people?
We are in the animal protection.
Right, but when you come across homes, do you ever use the resources with which you all have to assist humans?
If it was possible, but this is a criminal case, I don't have access to that. I didn't seize the animals. Animal control sees the animals. We are there to assist. Now, do I have empathy?
Y'all are there for the video, so to film the video.
No, sir. We were
Okay.
there to assist these animals.
Who
Yeah.
physically touched the birds and removed them?
We did.
Okay. So you did seize the animals.
We took custody of the animals.
Aha,
The seizure has to be called for, and we are not law enforcement.
got it. Who came up with Operation Skyfall as the name?
I have no idea. We name all our operations.
So what did you say per bird per month was the
It was what, 16% of 80,000?
Yeah.
I don't have the paper in front of
So-
me. It's like 12,000 something.
So a month, what does an individual bird cost?
A month. What does an individual bird cost? They cost 25 per day, but times 30 days.
Okay. I'll pass, Judge.
Redirect.
Regarding volunteers, who is taking care of Miss Sipes animals at your facility?
Only ARC employees.
No further questions.
So no other person touches the Sipes animals, but ARC employees, not one volunteer has ever touched a bird, taken care of.
I mean, touch the bird, and no, we don't do that.
Volunteers have never taken care of animals.
Not specifically, no. I mean, what do you mean by taking care of them? The daily care, the
Water,
daily,
the enrichment bowl.
well, I mean, sure, somebody can put water in a bowl, but generally that area is for staff only.
Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. Ms. Schultz,